I'm Steven, I'm 32, and my entire family tried to forcibly move into my high-security apartment, believing they were entitled to it. Before I tell you about the moment a federal security team shut down their moving truck, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. I read every single one. It all started, as these things often do, over a supposedly friendly family dinner. The scent of my mother's lemon herb roast chicken, a scent that used to mean comfort and home, filled my apartment. But that night it smelled like a trap. They were all there. My father, Richard, sitting at the head of my table like he owned the place. My mother, Mary, fussing over the gravy, her eyes darting around the room with a critical glint. And my older brother, Leo, the golden child, lounging on my sofa with his wife, Sarah, as if they were already measuring for new curtains. "You know, Stevie," my dad began, his voice booming in a way that always made a room feel smaller, "it's a real shame, all this space going to waste." He gestured with his fork at my 2 spare bedrooms. "What does one guy need 3 bedrooms for anyway? You work from home. You're single, no kids." I felt that old, familiar tightening in my chest. The feeling of being scrutinized, judged, and found wanting. "I have guests sometimes, Dad," I said, my voice quieter than I intended. "And one room is my home office." My mother sighed dramatically from the kitchen pass-through. "Oh, Stephen, it's just selfish, really, when your own family is so cramped. Think of your brother." Of course. Think of Leo. It was always think of Leo. Leo, who was 2 years older, had floated through life on a cloud of our parents' unwavering approval. Every bad decision was a learning experience. Every financial screw-up was just bad luck. Meanwhile, my successes were treated like quiet, expected duties. I was the responsible one, the reliable one, the one who was supposed to fix things. Leo finally spoke up, a lazy, entitled smile on his face. "We've already calculated it out, little brother. It's perfect. Sarah and I will take the master bedroom. It has the ensuite which we need. Mom and Dad get the middle one. It's got the good morning light. You can have the smallest one, the one you use as an office. You won't mind, right?" I stared at him, my fork frozen halfway to my mouth. The sheer audacity of it was breathtaking. They weren't asking. They were informing. They had divided up my home, my sanctuary, like it was a piece of pie. But the final blow, the one that knocked the air from my lungs, came from my mother. She walked in, wiping her hands on her apron, a bright, false smile plastered on her face. "The best part is, you don't have to help with a thing," she announced cheerfully. "To make it easy on you, I've already booked the movers. They'll be here at 9 a.m. sharp. Tomorrow. Tomorrow." The word echoed in the sudden silence. They were moving in tomorrow. My own family was staging a hostile takeover of my life, and they expected me to just let them. They were all looking at me, waiting for me to nod, to accept, to be the good son, the good brother. But they had no idea where they were. They had no idea what they were trying to break into. And at that moment, as I looked at their smug, expectant faces, I knew I wouldn't be the one who broke. Not this time. Before I tell you how I responded, you need to understand that this wasn't a one-time thing. This was a pattern, woven into the very fabric of my childhood. My life was a constant, unspoken comparison to Leo, and I always came up short. I remember when I was 16. I'd worked every weekend for a year at a local grocery store, bagging groceries, stocking shelves, saving every penny. I had this dream of buying a used car, a beat-up old Honda, but it was my dream. I'd saved up nearly $2,000, a fortune for a kid my age, and kept it in a savings account. My parents called it my college fund, a term that made it sound official, protected. One day, I went to the bank to deposit a check and asked for a balance slip, just to see the number, to feel that pride. My heart stopped. The balance was $74.32. I ran home, my mind racing. A bank error? Fraud? I burst into the kitchen where my mom was humming, peeling potatoes. "Mom, the money. The money's gone from my account." She didn't even look up. "Oh, that. Don't be so dramatic, Stephen. We needed it." "We needed it?" I stammered. "It was my college fund. My car money. My dad walked in then, drawn by my raised voice. "You watch your tone," he said, pointing a potato peeler at me. "Your brother needed it. He had a brilliant business idea, a real opportunity." Leo's brilliant business idea was buying a bulk order of knockoff designer sunglasses to sell at the local flea market. He needed capital, so they had taken mine. They had drained my account without a word. "You took my money for sunglasses?" The betrayal was a physical ache in my chest. "It's an investment in your brother's future," my dad said, as if that explained everything. "When he makes it big, he'll pay you back 10 times over. Family helps family." Leo, of course, never sold a single pair. The box of cheap plastics sat in our garage for years, a monument to my lost savings and their casual disregard for my hard work. He never paid me back a dime. There was no apology. The incident was simply never spoken of again. It was a lesson I learned early and often. What was mine was negotiable, but what was Leo's was sacred. It was the same with everything. I got a full academic scholarship to a state university. They threw Leo a lavish party for a minor promotion at his sales job. I graduated with honors. They were too busy helping Leo move into a new apartment, which they co-signed for, to attend my ceremony. So I learned to be self-reliant. I worked twice as hard, not for their approval anymore, but for my own independence. I clawed my way into a competitive field, landed a government job, and finally, secured the life they never helped me build. This apartment, with its clean lines, its quiet corners, its view of the city, wasn't just a place to live. It was a fortress. It was the physical proof that I had made it on my own, without them. And now they wanted to take that, too. They saw my success not as something to celebrate, but as a resource to be plundered for the sake of their golden child. Standing there in my dining room, the ghost of that 16-year-old boy staring at a bank slip stood beside me, and he was screaming. The seeds for this dinner ambush had been planted a few weeks earlier, with a phone call from my mother's sister, my Aunt Carol. She had always been the family's information broker, armed with a syrupy sweet voice and an arsenal of prying questions disguised as loving concern. "Stevie, darling, how are you?" she chirped when I answered. "I was just thinking about you, all alone in that big, beautiful apartment of yours." I leaned back in my office chair, a knot of suspicion already forming in my stomach. "I'm doing great, Aunt Carol. Busy with work. The apartment is fine." "Oh, I'm sure it is," she cooed. "I just worry, that's all. There's so much space for one person. Don't you get lonely?" "I like the quiet," I said flatly. There was a pause, and then her voice dropped into a conspiratorial whisper. "It's just, you know how things are with your brother. He and Sarah are having such a hard time. Their little place is bursting at the seams, and with his financial troubles, they can't afford to move." There it was, the opening salvo. I'd heard whispers about Leo's money problems. Another failed business venture, some bad investments. He had a habit of living beyond his means, expecting our parents to bail him out. I guess the family bank had finally run dry. "That's tough," I offered, keeping my voice neutral. "It is," she sighed, the sound full of manufactured pity. "And your parents, you know how they worry. They're getting older. Wouldn't it be wonderful if the family could all be closer, to support each other? Your beautiful apartment has so many spare rooms. It just seems like a godsend, a perfect solution." The word solution hung in the air between us. My home wasn't a home. It was a solution to my brother's problems. "I'm not sure that would be a good idea, Aunt Carol," I said, trying to be polite but firm. "My work is very demanding, and I need my space." "Oh, of course, dear, of course. Your important job," she said, a subtle edge to her voice now. "I'm just saying family should come first. You wouldn't want to look back one day and regret not helping when you had the chance. Your mother would be heartbroken." The call ended soon after, but the conversation stuck with me like a bad taste. It was a classic move from the family playbook. Probe for weakness, apply guilt, and invoke my mother's fragile emotions. I knew something was coming. I just didn't realize how fast or how aggressive the invasion would be. Aunt Carol wasn't just making a suggestion. She was scouting the terrain for the main assault. I felt a chill run down my spine. This wasn't just about Leo needing a place to stay. It felt coordinated. It felt like a conspiracy. And I was the target. My head was spinning after the call with Aunt Carol. I needed a dose of sanity, a voice of reason from outside the echo chamber of my family's logic. I called Chloe. Chloe and I had met during our training program. She was a brilliant analyst, sharp, no-nonsense, and one of the few people I trusted implicitly. She'd heard all the stories about my family over coffee and late-night work sessions. "Let me guess," she said after I recounted the conversation. "Your golden boy brother has run into another spot of bad luck, and your family has identified a solution. St. Stephen's Home for Wayward Siblings." I couldn't help but let out a dry laugh. "You nailed it. They're laying it on thick. The guilt, the family-first speeches. My aunt made my apartment sound like a public utility. This isn't just a casual thought, Stephen," Chloe said, her tone turning serious. "This is a coordinated effort. Your aunt was the scout. The main force is coming. They're going to corner you." "I know," I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "I just don't know how to handle it. If I say no, I'm the villain. I'm the selfish son who abandoned his family. They'll never let me hear the end of it." "So what?" she shot back. "They already treat you like an ATM and a backup plan. What's the difference? This is your home, your sanctuary. You worked your tail off for it. You can't let them turn it into a frat house for your irresponsible brother." We were quiet for a moment. I could hear the faint clicking of her keyboard as she worked. Then, she asked the question that would change everything. "Stephen, do they actually know the specifics of where you live? I mean, really know?" I paused. "They know the address. They've visited a couple of times. They think it's just a fancy, upscale apartment building. But do they know what the Fairmont Residences on Embassy Row actually is? Do they understand the protocols? The clearances?" "No," I said slowly, a light bulb flickering on in my mind. "They have no idea. To them, my job is just some boring desk job for the government. They don't understand the clearance levels, the security briefings, the nature of my work, or my housing agreement. When they visited, they had to be signed in at the front desk. I always had to escort them. They complained about the hassle, but they chalked it up to a snooty building policy. They had no concept of the reality." "Then that's your ace in the hole," Chloe said, her voice firm. "This isn't about feelings. It's not about family obligation. It's about rules. Federal rules. They can't argue with that. Let them make their move. Let them push it. And when they do, you don't fight them with emotion. You stop them with facts. Cold, hard, unbendable facts." Her words were like a splash of cold water. She was right. I'd spent my whole life trying to win an emotional war I was destined to lose. It was time to change the battlefield. I wasn't just Stephen, the disappointing younger son. I was Stephen, the senior cybersecurity analyst for the State Department. And my home wasn't just an apartment. It was a whole different kind of property. And that brings us back to the dinner table. My mother's announcement about the movers arriving at 9 a.m. hung in the air, thick and suffocating. The trap had been sprung. I put down my fork, slowly and deliberately. The small clink of metal against ceramic seemed to echo in the room. I looked from my mother's triumphant smile to my father's stony expression of command, and finally to Leo, who was already looking at my master bedroom door as if it were his. "So, let me get this straight," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "You have decided, without my consent, to move into my home. You have assigned yourselves rooms. And you have hired a moving company to invade my apartment tomorrow morning." My father scoffed. "Invade? Don't be so dramatic. We're your family. This is what families do. We support each other." "This isn't support, Dad. This is an occupation," I countered. Leo finally chimed in, his tone dripping with condescension. "Look, man, don't make this a big deal. It's a win-win. We get a stable place to live and you get your family around you. We just need to stay for a couple of years, tops. Just until I get clear of a few stupid debts and get my new venture off the ground. His casual admission sent a jolt of anger through me. Stupid debts. So this was it. His latest failure was now my problem. My home was the collateral for his irresponsibility. The key word here wasn't just home, it was about my future, my financial security. He was threatening to drag me down with him, and my parents were his willing accomplices. Your debts are not my responsibility, Leo, I said, my voice hardening. And my home is not your crash pad. My mother's face crumpled, and the waterworks began. Stephen, how can you be so cold? After everything we've done for you, your brother is struggling. He's your blood. Would you rather see him on the street? He's not going to be on the street, Mom, and you know it. This isn't about survival. It's about convenience. It's about him wanting to maintain a certain lifestyle without having to pay for it. I said, looking directly at Leo. You want my master bedroom? Go out and earn one. The shock on their faces was almost comical. I had never spoken to them like this before. The quiet, accommodating Stephen was gone. Now, hold on a minute, my father boomed, pointing his finger at me. You have more than you need here. It is your duty to share with your family. We are not asking. We are telling you how it's going to be. No, I said simply. The word fell into the room like a stone. What did you say? My father's face was turning a dangerous shade of red. I said no. You are not moving in here. Not tomorrow. Not ever. This conversation is over. They stared at me, dumbfounded. They had expected me to fold, to protest weakly and then surrender to the guilt and pressure. They had come here for a coronation, not a rebellion. They didn't know it yet, but they had just declared war on a man who finally understood the power he held. The battle wouldn't be fought tomorrow morning at my doorstep. It was being won right here, right now, inside my own head. My single word, no, shattered the entitled fantasy they had built. The atmosphere in the room instantly shifted from smug certainty to furious disbelief. What do you mean, no? Leo sputtered, actually sitting up straight for the first time all evening. This is a done deal. We've already given notice at our old place. The truck is booked. Then I suggest you get on the phone and unbook it, I said, my gaze steady. That sounds like a you problem, not a me problem. My mother let out a wounded gasp, placing a hand over her heart as if I'd physically struck her. Stephen, I don't know who this cruel person is, but it's not the son I raised. We raised you to be kind, to be generous. You raised me to be a doormat for my brother. I shot back, the words sharper than I intended, but I didn't care. The dam of years of resentment had broken. You taught him that rules don't apply to him and taught me that my needs don't matter. Well, class is over. I've learned a new lesson. My father stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the hardwood floor. He was a big man and he used his height to intimidate. It had always worked before. You will show your mother some respect, he growled, looming over me. We are your parents. You owe us. This roof over your head, the food on your table when you were a kid, we gave you all of that. And I am grateful for that, I said, standing up to meet his glare, my voice not wavering. I have paid you back by being a responsible adult who doesn't ask you for a thing. I built this life myself. My salary pays for this roof. My hard work pays for this food. What I owe you is respect. And I am showing it by telling you the truth directly instead of letting you make a massive mistake. What I do not owe you is my home. It is not part of some unspoken family inheritance. The use of that word, inheritance, seemed to stun him for a second. It was as if I'd breached some sacred, unspoken contract. Sarah, who had been silent until now, decided to try a different tactic. Stephen, please, she said, her voice cloyingly sweet. Think about the family. We just want to be close. Is that so wrong? There's a difference between being close and being conjoined, I said. You can be close from a different apartment, in a different zip code. This isn't about family. It's about real estate. They threw everything at me for the next 20 minutes. They called me selfish, ungrateful, a traitor. They said I had been corrupted by my fancy job and had forgotten where I came from. It was a full-scale emotional assault. a coordinated attack designed to wear me down, to make me feel so guilty that I would capitulate just to make it stop. But something inside me had hardened. Each insult, each manipulative plea, only strengthened my resolve. It was like watching a movie I'd seen 100 times. I knew all the lines, and for the first time they had no power over me. They eventually stormed out, slamming the door behind them, leaving a half-eaten dinner on the table and the stench of their entitlement hanging in the air. The final parting shot came from my mother. "You'll regret this, Stephen. You'll be all alone, and it will be your own fault." The silence that descended after they left was deafening. I stood in the middle of my living room, the scene of the battle, and my hands were shaking. Not from fear, but from adrenaline. I had done it. I had actually stood up to them. All of them. For a moment, a wave of doubt washed over me. My mother's final words echoed in my ears. "You'll be all alone." It was my deepest fear, the one they had always known how to exploit. What if she was right? What if I had just severed my ties to my family forever over a few empty rooms? I walked over to the large window that overlooked the city. The lights twinkled below, a million separate lives all humming along in the night. I had chosen this place specifically for the view. It reminded me that the world was bigger than my family's suffocating little drama. It was a symbol of the life I had built. I thought about what would happen if I gave in. The constant criticism from my mother. My father's loud, intrusive presence. Leo and Sarah, treating my home like a hotel, leaving messes, expecting me to cater to them. There would be no peace, no privacy. My sanctuary would become my prison. The life I had worked so hard to create would be erased, swallowed whole by their needs, their noise, their chaos. The momentary doubt evaporated, replaced by a cold, hard certainty. This wasn't just about protecting my apartment. It was about protecting myself, my peace of mind, my future. This was the hill I had to die on. My resolve solidified into a plan of action. I wasn't going to be passive. I wasn't going to just wait for the moving truck to show up and have a screaming match at the door. I was going to be proactive. I was going to use the system they didn't understand to protect myself. I sat down at my desk, the same one they had so casually reassigned to me in the smallest bedroom. I opened my laptop, the screen illuminating my face in the dark room. My fingers flew across the keyboard. I pulled up my housing agreement, the one issued by the State Department. I highlighted the relevant clauses, the ones about unauthorized cohabitation, security protocols, and the legal status of the building. Then I composed a new email. It was addressed to Patricia Morrison, the building's director of management, a woman I knew to be professional and incredibly thorough. The subject line was concise: potential unauthorized entry attempt, apartment 12B. In the body of the email, I laid out the situation calmly and professionally. I stated that members of my family had explicitly threatened to move into my residence without my consent, that they had hired movers, and that they were scheduled to arrive at 0900 hours. I attached the highlighted sections of my housing agreement. I didn't frame it as a family dispute. I framed it as a security issue. I wrote, "I anticipate they will attempt to gain access to the building under false pretenses. I am officially notifying you of this potential security breach and request that building security be prepared to enforce standard protocol. They are not approved residents, and they do not have my permission to enter the premises for the purpose of moving in." I hit send. The small whoosh sound of the email leaving my outbox was the loudest, most definitive sound I had ever heard. It was a declaration of independence. I wasn't just saying no anymore. I was building a wall, and I was using the full weight of the United States government as the bricks and mortar. I barely slept that night, but when my alarm went off at 6 a.m., I felt a strange sense of calm. I knew what I had to do. Before dealing with the impending storm at my front door, I had another, more important meeting. By 7:30 a.m., I was in my office on the 14th floor of a building that didn't appear on public maps. I had requested a brief, urgent meeting with my direct superior, Eleanor Vance. Eleanor was a woman in her late 50s who had been with the State Department for 3 decades. She had a reputation for being tough, fair, and utterly unflappable. She missed nothing. I sat in the chair opposite her large mahogany desk, the faint scent of old books and strong coffee in the air. I laid out the situation for her, just as I had in my email to building management, but with more personal context. I didn't whine or complain. I stated the facts. My family's demands, their plans, and the action I had taken. She listened intently, her fingers steepled under her chin, her gaze sharp and analytical. She didn't interrupt once. When I finished, she was silent for a long moment. "Let me be perfectly clear, Stephen," she finally said, her voice crisp. "You did the absolute right thing by notifying building management and by notifying me. Your residence is not just an apartment. It is designated government housing for personnel with sensitive security clearances. Its integrity is a matter of federal concern." I felt a wave of relief wash over me. I wasn't just being dramatic. I wasn't overreacting. "Your family's ignorance of the law is not an excuse," she continued, her eyes locking onto mine. "The protocols are in place for a reason. We cannot have unauthorized and unvetted individuals residing in a building that houses dozens of diplomatic and security personnel. It's a massive liability." She leaned forward. "This is no longer a domestic dispute. The moment they hired a moving truck to forcibly occupy a protected residence, they crossed a line. You are not just protecting your home, Stephen. You are upholding your security agreement and protecting government property." She swiveled in her chair and typed something into her computer. "I've just reviewed your file. Your promotion to senior analyst is coming up for review next month, along with a significant salary increase. An incident like this, if handled improperly, could jeopardize that. But you have handled it by the book. You have shown excellent judgment under pressure." The validation from her was more powerful than 1,000 apologies from my family. She saw the situation not through the distorted lens of family obligation, but through the clear lens of law and protocol. "Go home, Stephen," she said, her voice softening slightly. "Let the building's security team handle it. That's what they're there for. Do not engage. Do not argue. You are a federal employee in a protected residence, and you have reported a security threat. Your job is done. Let the system work." I stood up, feeling 10 feet tall. "Thank you, Eleanor. Just do good work, Stephen. That's all the thanks I need." I walked out of her office with a newfound sense of power. I wasn't just fighting for my personal space anymore. I had the full, quiet, and formidable backing of my employer. My family thought they were picking a fight with their pushover son. They had no idea they were about to go up against the U.S. State Department. On the way home, my adrenaline began to fade, replaced by a jittery anxiety. Even with Eleanor's reassurance, this was still my family. The prospect of the inevitable confrontation was making me sick to my stomach. Needing to talk to someone who was still family, I made a mistake. I called my younger cousin, Jessica. Jessica was my Aunt Carol's daughter, but she had always seemed different, quieter, more thoughtful. We had been close as kids, sharing secrets and complaining about our respective parents. I thought mistakenly that she was on my side, that she would understand. "Jess? It's Stephen. Hey, what's up? I heard you had the family over for dinner last night. Mom said it was tense," she said, a hint of curiosity in her voice. "Tense is the understatement of the century," I said, and then it all came pouring out. I told her everything. The ambush, the demands, Leo's debts, the moving truck. I told her how hurt and angry I was, how betrayed I felt. "They just don't see me, Jess," I vented, my voice cracking with an emotion I hadn't allowed myself to show anyone else. "They look at me and all they see is a solution to Leo's problems. It's like I'm not even a person. I'm just a resource." Jessica was quiet on the other end of the line, making all the right sympathetic noises. "Oh, Stephen, that's awful. I'm so sorry you're going through this. It's not fair. It's never been fair." Her words were exactly what I needed to hear. I felt a surge of gratitude. See? Not everyone in the family was crazy. Jessica got it. I feel like I'm about to blow up the entire family. I confessed, my voice low. "But I don't know what else to do. If I let them in, I lose myself. If I don't, I lose them." Not that I'm sure what I'd be losing at this point. You have to do what's right for you, she said soothingly. You have every right to protect your home and your peace. Don't let them guilt you. We talked for a few more minutes, and I hung up feeling a little lighter, a little less alone in my fight. I felt understood. What I didn't know, what I couldn't possibly have conceived of, was that Jessica had her phone on speaker. And in the room with her was her mother, my Aunt Carol. And my entire, raw, vulnerable confession was being recorded. It wasn't a conversation. It was an interrogation. They weren't collecting my feelings. They were collecting ammunition. At that moment, I still thought the battle would be at my front door. I had no idea a second front was being opened up behind my back, using my own words as weapons. I arrived back at my building at 8:45 a.m. The morning air was cool and crisp. There was an unusual stillness around the entrance, a kind of coiled tension. I saw Mr. Henderson, the head of building security, a stern ex-military man, speaking quietly into his radio near the front gate. He gave me a curt, professional nod as I swiped my keycard. He had clearly gotten the memo. I went up to my apartment, my heart pounding a steady, heavy rhythm against my ribs. I didn't sit down. I walked to the window that overlooked the main street and waited. At precisely 9:02 a.m. it appeared. A large, yellow moving truck, rumbling down the street like a war machine. It slowed as it approached the entrance to the building's secure driveway, its turn signal blinking with an absurd cheerfulness. Following closely behind it was my dad's oversized pickup truck. The moving truck pulled up to the security gate, and the barrier arm remained firmly down. I could see the driver lean out the window, looking confused. My father's truck pulled up behind it, and my family piled out. Richard, Mary, Leo, Sarah, and even my Aunt Carol, who was there to supervise her handiwork. From 12 stories up, they looked like angry ants. I could see my father marching up to the security booth, gesticulating wildly. Leo was trying to talk to the truck driver, probably telling him to just drive through the barrier. My mother was wringing her hands, playing the part of the distressed matriarch. My phone buzzed. It was Leo. I ignored it. It buzzed again. My dad. Ignored. A text message from my mom. Stephen, what is going on? They won't let the movers in. Come down here and fix this at once. I watched as Mr. Henderson and two other uniformed security guards walked calmly out to the gate. They weren't the usual friendly doormen. These men had a different bearing. They were professional, impassive, and solid as rocks. Mr. Henderson held a clipboard and spoke to my father, whose face was getting redder and redder. I couldn't hear the words, but I could see my dad's angry, sputtering disbelief. He pointed up towards my apartment, then jabbed his finger at Mr. Henderson's chest. Mr. Henderson didn't flinch. He simply shook his head, said something brief, and turned to speak to the moving truck driver. After a short exchange, the driver shrugged, got back in his cab, and began the awkward process of backing the large truck out onto the main road. He clearly wanted no part of this. My family was in full meltdown. Leo was now on the phone, probably leaving me a furious voicemail. My mother looked like she was about to faint. Aunt Carol was trying to reason with one of the other guards, her sweet and innocent routine having absolutely no effect. Then my apartment's intercom buzzed. I pressed the button. Yes, it was the front desk. Mr. Stephen, your family is in the lobby requesting to see you. Mr. Henderson is with them. Thank you. I'll be right down, I said. It was time. Time to face them. I took a deep breath, straightened my jacket, and walked to the door. I felt no fear, only a cold, clear sense of purpose. The show was about to begin. The elevator ride down felt like a slow descent into a battle arena. When the doors opened to the lobby, the scene was exactly as I'd pictured. My family was huddled together, looking furious and victimized. Mr. Henderson stood a few feet away, a stoic and imposing figure of authority. Two other guards were positioned discreetly by the main doors. The lobby, usually a quiet space of polished marble and soft lighting, felt like a pressure cooker. They all turned as I approached. There you are, my father bellowed. his voice echoing in the large space. Are you going to tell these clowns to let our movers in, or what? This is insane. Dad, their names are Mr. Henderson and Officer Riley, and they are doing their job, I said, my voice even in calm. I walked past my family and addressed Mr. Henderson directly. Thank you for handling the situation at the gate. Standard protocol, sir, he said with a nod. My mother rushed forward. Stephen, what have you done? You've embarrassed us. You've embarrassed the whole family. I finally turned to face them. All of them. I looked at their angry, confused faces, and for the first time, I felt nothing but a profound sense of distance. We were living in two completely different realities. It was time to show them mine. I haven't done anything, I said, my voice ringing with a clarity that silenced them all. You did this. You created this situation based on a complete lack of understanding of where I live. Leo laughed, a short, sharp, ugly sound. What are you talking about? It's an apartment building. A fancy one. Sure, but it's just an apartment. No, Leo, it's not, I said, letting the words sink in. Look around. Look at the credentials on the security desk. Look at the flag in the corner. Have you ever once wondered why every guest has to be pre-registered 48 hours in advance and escorted at all times? They stared at me blankly. This is the Fairmont Residences on Embassy Row, I stated, my voice like ice. Specifically, we are in the International District, in a building designated for diplomatic personnel and high-clearance federal employees. This isn't a condo, Dad. This is protected diplomatic housing, managed by the International Relations Bureau of the State Department. A wave of stunned silence washed over them. Sarah's jaw literally dropped. My father's face went from red to a pale, mottled white. You're not a diplomat, my mother stammered. I'm a senior cybersecurity analyst for the State Department, I said, making eye contact with each of them. My clearance level is TS/SCI, top secret/sensitive compartmented information. This apartment isn't just a perk, it's part of my government housing package. It is, for all legal purposes, secured federal property. Aunt Carol, ever the schemer, tried to find an angle. But we're family. There must be an exception. There are no exceptions for family. I cut her off. In fact, the rules are even stricter for us to avoid exactly this kind of coercion and security risk. You legally cannot reside in this building without undergoing an extensive 8 to 12-week background check and being approved by the department. Your plan to move in today was impossible from the start. Leo was fumbling with his phone, his fingers shaking as he Googled something. His face turned ashen. Guys, he whispered, his voice trembling. It says here, unauthorized entry or attempted occupation of diplomatic housing. It's a federal offense. Can result in federal charges. Up to 5 years in prison. I nodded slowly. That's right. This isn't a family squabble anymore. You weren't trying to move into your son's apartment. You were attempting to illegally occupy secured United States government property. So, I ask you again, do you want me to tell Mr. Henderson to let your movers in? The crushing, absolute silence was my answer. The game was over. Checkmate. This is the moment that changed everything, the moment I finally took back control of my life. Thank you for sticking with me this far, you're amazing. If you're with me, do me a favor and hit that like button and comment with the number 1 below. It tells the algorithm that this story matters, but more importantly, it tells me that my experience resonates with someone. Your support is the biggest motivation for me to continue sharing the rest of this journey. Just as the full weight of Leo's discovery settled over my family, a pair of elegant but sensible heels clicked decisively on the marble floor. Patricia Morrison, the building director, approached our tense little group. She was in her 60s, always impeccably dressed, with an air of authority that could stop a charging rhino. Mr. Henderson, is the perimeter secure? She asked, her voice calm and businesslike, completely ignoring my family. Yes, Ms. Morrison. The vehicle has been removed from the property line, he replied. Excellent. She then turned her attention to me, offering a brief, professional smile. Stephen, I received your email last night and the subsequent report from night security. Thank you for your proactive communication. She then turned her cool gaze upon my family, who seemed to shrink under her scrutiny. I am Patricia Morrison, the director of this facility. I understand there has been a significant misunderstanding regarding the residency policies of this building. My father, ever the blusterer, tried to regain some semblance of control. Now see here, we're his parents. This is a family matter. Ms. Morrison's smile didn't waver, but it lost all its warmth. With all due respect, sir, the moment you hired a commercial vehicle to attempt to occupy a unit in this facility without authorization, it ceased to be a family matter and became a security incident. An official report is required. She held up a tablet. I just need to confirm a few details for the record, Stephen. Is it correct that these individuals, Richard, Mary, Leo, Sarah, and Carol, arrived with the stated intent to move into your residence, apartment 12B, without your consent and without having submitted to the mandatory federal background checks? My family flinched as she named each of them, her tone making them sound like defendants in a courtroom. Yes, that is correct, I confirmed. And is it correct that they were informed of their inability to do so by building security, at which point they became disruptive? Also correct, I said. She made a few notes. Very well. The incident will be logged and reported to our liaisons at the State Department, as per standard procedure. A copy will be placed in your resident file, Stephen, noting that you acted appropriately and in accordance with your housing agreement. She looked back at my family. As for you, you are now officially on a list of denied persons. You will not be permitted on the premises again without a formal security clearance appeal, which I can assure you is a very lengthy and unpleasant process. I would advise against it. Mr. Henderson and his team will now escort you off the property. The finality in her voice was absolute. There was no room for argument, no space for manipulation. This was a world of rules and consequences, a world my family had never been forced to inhabit. They were utterly out of their depth. Without another word, they turned and shuffled towards the door, a defeated little group. They looked small and powerless. As Mr. Henderson held the door open for them, my mother turned back to give me one last hateful glare. It was filled with venom, but for the first time in my life, it didn't hurt, couldn't touch me. The fortress wasn't just the building. It was the newfound strength inside me. The humiliation in the lobby was not the end of it. I knew it wouldn't be. My family had lost the battle, but they were determined to make me pay for the war. The terror campaign, as Chloe later called it, began within the hour. My phone started blowing up with text messages. They were a deluge of guilt, blame, and financial demands. From Leo, "You happy now? We have to pay the moving company for the full day, and a cancellation fee for the storage unit I was supposed to empty. You owe me $800. I'll send you my Venmo." From my dad, "Your mother is destroyed," crying her eyes out. "I hope you're proud of yourself for choosing a building over your own blood." From my mom, "I don't know what we did to deserve such a heartless son, to publicly shame your own family like that. You broke my heart, Stephen." I read them, a strange sense of detachment washing over me. The words were meant to sting, to pull me back into the old dance of guilt and obligation. But they were just words on a screen. The spell was broken. I deleted them one by one without replying. Then came the final, most vicious attack. A message from a number I hadn't blocked yet. My cousin, Jessica. It wasn't a text. It was an audio file. My heart went cold. I had a sickening feeling I knew what it was. I put my phone to my ear and pressed play. My own voice filled the silence. Raw, angry, vulnerable. It was from our call that morning. "They just don't see me, Jess. All they see is a solution to Leo's problems. It's like I'm not even a person. I'm just a resource." The recording went on, playing back all my private pain and frustration. And then, a text message from her appeared below it. "I can't believe you would say such horrible things about your own family, the people who love you. I'm sending this to Grandma and all the aunts and uncles so they know what a snake you really are. Maybe you'll think twice next time before you betray everyone." Betrayal. The hypocrisy was so staggering it was almost funny. She, the one who had recorded my private plea for help to use as a weapon, was accusing me of betrayal. For a second, the pain was sharp and real. This was a different kind of wound. Came from someone I had trusted. It was calculated and cruel. I felt the old shame creeping back in, the feeling of being the bad guy, the one who was wrong. But then, I thought about it. I thought about the words I had said. They were true. Every single one of them. Sending that recording around wouldn't expose me as a snake. It would expose them for what they were. It was a desperate, pathetic last-ditch effort to control the narrative. I took a deep breath. I looked at her message, at the little audio file icon. I didn't get angry. I didn't text back a furious reply. I simply held my finger down on her contact name, and a small menu popped up. With a single, quiet tap, I blocked her number. And with it, I blocked out the last vestige of their power over me. The 6 months that followed the lobby incident were the quietest, most peaceful months of my entire adult life. The silence from my family was absolute. No calls, no texts, no guilt-laden emails. It was like a constant, low-grade fever I didn't even know I had had suddenly broken. The freedom was intoxicating. Without the constant drain of their drama, my life began to flourish in ways I hadn't expected. My focus at work sharpened. The project I was leading, a complex cybersecurity overhaul for several embassies, was completed ahead of schedule and under budget. The promotion Eleanor had mentioned came through. The new title and the substantial salary increase were great, but what truly mattered was the recognition. It was validation earned through merit, not through manipulation. My ambitious colleague, Mark, who had been positioning himself for the role, could only offer a tight-lipped, resentful congratulations. I started using the peace in my life to rebuild myself from the inside out. I found a therapist, a kind, intelligent woman who helped me unpack 30 years of family dynamics. She gave me the language to understand what I had experienced: emotional manipulation, narcissism, the golden child, and scapegoat roles. She helped me see that setting boundaries wasn't an act of aggression, but an act of self-preservation. I started dating again. I met a woman named Anna, an architect with a quick laugh and a calm, centered energy that felt like coming home. On our third date, I told her a little about my family situation. I didn't overdo it, but I was honest. She listened, and when I was done, she simply said, "Wow, I'm so sorry you went through that. It takes incredible strength to build a boundary like that." There was no judgment, only empathy. It was a revelation. My apartment, once the target of an invasion, truly became my sanctuary. I hosted small dinner parties for friends, Chloe, a few other colleagues, Anna. The space filled with laughter and intelligent conversation. It was a chosen family, a family built on mutual respect and genuine affection. One Saturday morning, I was sitting by my window, drinking coffee and reading a book. The sun was streaming in, and the city was humming with life below. My phone buzzed with an email. It was from Eleanor Vance. The subject was simple: "Congratulations." I thought it was just a follow-up on the promotion, but it was more personal. She wrote, "Stephen, I wanted to congratulate you not only on your excellent work leading the Omega project, but on your resilience. The report from the Morrison incident was closed last month. You handled a difficult personal and professional challenge with integrity. That quality is rarer than you think. Well done." I leaned my head back and closed my eyes, a slow smile spreading across my face. I wasn't alone. I hadn't been wrong. I had chosen myself, and the world had rewarded me for it. I was finally truly at peace. One evening, about 8 months after the showdown, I got a call from an unexpected number. It was David, a guy I'd grown up with. We'd been good friends as kids, but had drifted apart, mostly because he'd stayed firmly in Leo's orbit. "Hey, Stephen. Man, it's been a while," he said, his voice hesitant and a little awkward. "David? Wow. Yeah, it has. How are you?" Look, I'm sorry to call you out of the blue like this, and I'm sorry for everything. I heard what went down with your family. It was all over the grapevine." He paused, and I could hear him take a deep breath. "Look, I know it's none of my business, but I saw your Aunt Carol the other day. She was at the bar and she'd had a few too many. She was complaining to your mom on the phone, and I overheard some things. I just thought you should know. I sat down, a strange sense of foreboding in my gut. What things? It wasn't just about Leo needing a place to stay, David said, his voice dropping. It was about Carol. Apparently, a few years ago, she co-signed on a massive business loan for Leo, for that stupid import-export idea he had. He'd used up all your parents' goodwill, so he went to her. It all started to click into place. The business failed, obviously, David continued, and Leo defaulted on the loan. The bank wasn't going after him because he has no assets. They were going after the cosigner. They were going to put a lien on Carol's house. She was about to lose everything. The pieces of the puzzle slammed together in my head. Aunt Carol's syrupy phone call, her presence at the moving day disaster, her desperate, frantic energy. So the plan? I said slowly, thinking it through. The plan was to get Leo and your parents into my apartment, rent-free, so Leo could use whatever money he had to start paying off the loan and get the bank off Carol's back. Exactly, David confirmed. She wasn't just helping her favorite nephew. She was trying to save her own skin. She was the one who came up with the whole idea, who convinced your parents it was their right as a family. She was desperate. A wave of something that wasn't quite anger, but a kind of weary disgust, washed over me. It was so much worse than I had imagined. It wasn't just entitlement. It wasn't just selfishness. It was a calculated, desperate plot born from greed and stupidity, and I was supposed to be the sacrificial lamb. My financial future, my home, my sanity. All of it was meant to be kindling for the fire of their terrible decisions. Thanks for telling me, David, I said, my voice quiet. Yeah, well, I should have said something sooner. What they did to you, it was never right, man. Never. We hung up, and I stared out the window. Knowing the truth didn't change anything, but it clarified everything. It laid bare the rotten foundation upon which my family was built. It wasn't a family. It was a cartel of takers, and I had been their designated giver for far too long. A year to the day after the moving truck incident, a single piece of mail arrived that stood out from the usual bills and junk mail. It was a thick, cream-colored envelope, and the handwriting on the front was my father's. I held it for a long time, feeling its weight in my hand. Part of me wanted to throw it straight into the trash, unopened. Another, smaller part, the ghost of the boy who just wanted his dad's approval, was curious. Against my better judgment, I slid it open. It was a 2-page letter, written in my father's aggressive, slanting script. I scanned it, looking for the words I knew I would never find. I'm sorry. I was wrong. They weren't there. The letter was a masterpiece of non-apology. It was a long, rambling screed about the importance of family, about loyalty, about how, in his day, children respected their elders. He didn't acknowledge my side of the story at all. Instead, he painted me as the villain, the cold, modern son who had chosen government regulations over helping his own parents and sister-in-law. He detailed all of Leo's subsequent hardships. How Leo and Sarah had to move into a tiny, run-down apartment. How Leo was working a dead-end job to pay off his massive debts. How my mother worried herself sick every night. Every sentence was crafted to inflict maximum guilt. The final paragraph was the real kicker. I don't know what happened to you, Stephen. We raised you to be a good man. But a good man does not turn his back on his family. I am writing this to offer you one last chance to make things right. Leo is your brother. He needs you. We need you. It is time for you to step up and do your duty. There was no signature, just his name printed. I read it a second time just to be sure. There was no remorse, no self-awareness, no acknowledgement of the truth. After everything that had happened, after a full year of silence, this was what he had to offer. Not an olive branch, but the same old rusty cage, demanding I step back inside. I stood up and walked over to the small office I had built for myself in the second bedroom. On the corner of the desk sat a sleek, black paper shredder. I took the 2 pages of the letter, folded them neatly together, and fed them into the slot. The machine whirred to life, its mechanical teeth grabbing the paper and pulling it in. It let out a satisfying, grinding crunch as it devoured my father's words, turning his accusations and manipulations into a pile of meaningless, cross-cut confetti. I watched until the last strip of the cream-colored paper disappeared. The sound of the shredder was the sound of closure. It was the sound of a final boundary being drawn, not in anger, but in peace. It was the sound of me finally and completely choosing myself. It's funny what the word home can mean. For the longest time, I thought it was a place you were born into, a group of people you were stuck with. It was a place of obligation, of expectation, a place where you had to constantly fight for your own space, your own identity. The home I grew up in was a place where love was conditional and respect was a one-way street. But standing here now, in my apartment, I know that's not what home is. I'm looking out my window, the same window from which I watched the moving truck get turned away. The city lights are just starting to come on, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. It's beautiful, it's peaceful, and it's mine. Home isn't the walls or the roof. It's the safety you feel inside them. It's the freedom to be yourself without apology. It's the quiet that allows you to hear your own thoughts. It's a place where your accomplishments are celebrated, not seen as resources to be exploited. My family, I've learned, was a house, but it was never a home. I still feel a pang of sadness for that sometimes, for the family I wish I'd had. But the grief is a quiet echo now, not a roar. My therapist says that grieving the family you deserved is a necessary part of healing. What I have now is real. I have friends who have become my family. Chloe, who had my back from the very beginning. Anna, who sees me for who I am and not what I can do for her. They are the pillars of my new home, the one I built myself. My phone buzzes on the counter. There's a text from Anna. Just a picture of a ridiculous-looking dog she saw on her walk home, its tongue lolling out. Underneath it, she wrote, "Thinking of you. See you Friday?" I smile, a real easy smile. I type back, "Can't wait." I didn't lose my family that day. I was liberated from them. I learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to walk away. To build your own walls, not to keep the world out, but to create a space safe enough for you to finally thrive. This place, this life, this is my home. And no amount of entitlement will ever override that. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it resonated with you in some way. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice to protect your own peace? Share your story in the comments below, and please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss what I share next. Your support means the world.